Hey, it's Ryan with JLT. Today we're going to be doing the install video on the C8 Stingray kit here. So we've got a non-convertible, a coupe in today. If you have a convertible, the install is extremely similar. The only difference is going to be you're going to have to remove the engine cover with a bunch of Torx 15 before you start, as well as kind of put the top up and down a few times during the install so that you can have the trunk open and the engine cover open. On the coupes, a little bit easier, one less step and easier to access. So we'll be doing it on a coupe here today, and we'll dive into it with a Torx 15, removing the cover over the intake box here. And one more note, if you have the convertible, there's going to be a coolant expansion tank that sits right here and makes access really hard to the bolts and the MAF harness and everything. So if there's a 10mm bolt on top of this, and we'll patch in a clip right here from our Z06 install that we did with the convertible and show you how to remove that coolant tank. But you just remove the one bolt and then it slides up out of the way, flips over, and gives you a ton of access to the intake. So I've removed the 4 Torx screws holding in one side bracket. These just get pulled right out of here. And I'll do the exact same on the other side. And then we'll be ready to start removing these hand tighteners, or hand fasteners down here. And pull this carpet out. Now go ahead and pull up on the carpet, and there'll be a couple push rivets we're going to grab on the bottom here. There's one. There's 2. So there will be 4 in total. With 4 of those out, the carpet will release. Now go ahead and start removing the actual air intake box cover here. So a bunch more Torx 15s. I highly recommend at least loosen them with an impact. Save yourself a bunch of time. So all the Torx bolts removed. This cover will release. Set that on top of the carpet over here, and this is now going to expose the full intake. We can start by loosening up everything on this side of the intake first. So these screws hold the air inlet, kind of scoops to the box. We'll pull 4 of these 10mm out here. It's going to be exactly the same on both sides. All 4 bolts are removed. Now we just slide the piece forwards. We'll set that aside and repeat the exact same process on the passenger side. I use a Torx 30 now and remove the 2 rearward facing airbox mounting bolts. And then there's 2 more on the back side we'll get to once we go to the other side here. Use a flathead here and remove or loosen the hose clamp on the throttle body side. That's plenty loose. Next we will push in on this black tab here and remove the PCV connections. On the other side, I'll show you in a second. We'll remove the MAF, and then I'll show you how the plug works here. So you're going to slide back on the white and then just depress on the same white tab. So slide back with your fingernail and then press down and wiggle it, and it should come right off. Next up, we've got a couple more quick connects on both sides for the harnesses, and then we'll be able to remove the kit. There's 2 harnesses. These are just the plugs for the O2 sensors in the cats. They're easier to get to on the coupes from the rear. On the convertibles, you can get to them from the other side. I just take a panel popper, and you can feel the push rivet in here, and I've got like a 90-degree panel popper. Get under it, and then they're pretty loose normally. So that's almost out. There it goes. So that's released. So 1 on each top corner of the airbox. So this is the main harness that has the MAF sensor and that one we already removed that goes to the O2. There's 2 more quick connects we've removed. And this, again, just 90-degree panel popper or a standard one, and get you in between these and the airbox, and that'll free this whole harness up. And so now the only thing we have left is this transmission vent. I'm just gonna keep working on trying to get behind there, which I did. The Christmas tree on this one's extremely long, so it can be difficult to remove. And if it breaks, we have replacements in the kit, so don't be too concerned. You can see how long the push rivet is here, so that one we finally got out just via wiggling it, getting this behind there. The 90 gets you around the vent itself, and then I was able to put my finger on the other side and pull. So we're gonna go to the driver's side, get all those clips done. This side is gonna be pretty much a mirror, so we're gonna have 1 on the bottom, 1 more in the middle here, and then we've already pulled the top out, which is this one here. So same exact process, just slowly get my push rivet tool behind them all. A lot more fun to put back in than they are to take out. So I'm gonna work on these and let you know once we have them all done. So this harness is mirrored like I mentioned. 1 quick connect at the bottom, 1 more halfway up, 1 on the top, and then there's 1 on the bottom that's brown going around. So the only thing left, there's a GPS antenna that you can't see yet up on top of the box. So I've got the Torx 30 again and a wobble and some extensions. There's a Torx bolt at the base of the airbox on each side here. And these are pretty miserable to get out. So I'm holding the extension, and I'll show you here in a second once it's broken loose now, so we'll start backing it out, but you can see the bolt all the way down in there. And so there's just no great angle. On the Corvette, on the convertibles, it's a little bit easier. You can have a more straight shot, but on these coupes, it's pretty well hidden. Another option is a shorter extension. You can come drop straight down under this bar, and then just do small turns with the ratchet. This is probably better. And then there'll be another one of these bolts on the other side. Make sure you don't drop this bolt. Removed all the mounting bolts. We have all the harnesses out so that we can pull this backwards. And, oh, I have it stuck. I had that'll help us out now. What harness is stuck? So it was just a little stuck underneath this lip here. With it out, we can go ahead and remove this GPS antenna. So it's another one where we slide the clip backwards and then the tabs back behind the clip. And that comes off, and now the factory intake is ready to remove from the car. So we're going to drill out the heat stakes now. With with that, our sensor's free, and we can take a pair of flush cuts and just remove the rest of the material from here. Just do it like this. So we can move over the GPS onto the S&B airbox as our first kind of step here. And these will be Phillips head screws. So using a T30 now, again, we can remove the heat shields from the factory airbox. We won't be reusing these T30 self-tapper screws, as we provide like machine thread screws for our airbox. Next thing to remove from the factory airbox will be the factory MAF sensor. This is going to be a Torx 20. Next up, we can move the MAF sensor onto the intake tube. So to do that, we're going to install the foam gasket and then the MAF adapter plate and then the factory MAF sensor. And then we provide new Phillips head screws that sandwich the whole assembly. We can go ahead and put the JLT provided bracket in here. And this is going to make it so we don't have to get to those front two bolts. They were such a pain with the intake installed originally. Now we get to put them in before the intake's in place. And these are all going to be the same Torx 30s that we removed. Get started by hand. Run all these in. We're going to now remove the factory side scoops. These are just going to be 10 millimeters, and this will allow us to install our better flowing JLT ones. There'll be two 10s, one on the top, one on the bottom, and the other side is mirrored, so identical process. We now install the larger JLT side scoops. We're going to put compression limiters in, reuse the bolts, and then these just slide right in. You can snap that inner velocity stack into the hole. There it goes. Start the screws. Same exact process on the passenger side. So press in our compression limiters, reuse the original screws. Oops. Now start assembling the coupler. So we're going to put the hose clamp on the PCV fitting on this. You can kind of look in the car here and see with the coupler in place where this needs to be. It's going to be right there. So I can pull that off now and tighten down my hose clamp. I've got this lined up, my hose clamp's loosely installed. We can now go on the throttle body with the coupler and tighten up our throttle body side hose clamp. We can also install our tube into our filter. There's a notch right there that you're going to orient that. Tighten this hose clamp up. And get ready to install our airbox next. Install the airbox, we're going to loosely slide the hose clamps over the side scoops all the way up. And then we're going to grab our airbox, start it into one side here, and then kind of work it into the other. Stick your hand in there to help it in. And then you can look at the bracket down below, kind of line up the holes. We're going to provide 4 new 10mm bolts. Get started. One last thing to remove from the factory airbox is going to be this ambient temperature sensor. It's actually easier to install before you install the S&B or JLT airbox here, but we'll have room. I'll squeeze it in here. It goes in the bracket underneath the box here. There'll be a little hole, allows for it to get clicked in. We can now reconnect the GPS harness. You're not gonna be able to see it, but on the back side you can feel, and just remember to slide that red locking tab back in place. With that plugged in, we'll make sure that this harness is up and out of the way of the intake tube, and that this piece, the transmission vent, we want to make sure is sitting down over there. And we can now start installing our hose clamps on our intake scoops here. These will just be 5/16 nut driver or flathead. And the filter's ready to go in now. So we're just going to get the filter started as much as we can. On this side, then I'll step over the engine bay. We'll line the tube up here. Which is now done. And then we're going to pull that snap-in bead around the outside of the filter while we kind of push with our other hand. And we are completely snapped in, and the filter is installed. We now connect our PCV until it snaps. We'll be able to come back and get this hose clamp here in a second. And so I'm going to take one hand on the filter flange, kind of pulling outwards on this tube while I tighten this hose clamp. And that's just because the weight of the tube assembly kind of pushes the tube back. So the other hand, make sure we get the tube flush. Go ahead and reconnect our MAF sensor on this side and push the tab back in. And then this will be our transmission vent, and there's a prong on the back side of the filter to receive this Christmas tree push rivet. And then both of these harnesses, we're going to push up and over the tube and zip tie them together to make sure they stay away from the cats. And so I'll grab both of them here and put them together. You can do one of two things on the convertible cars. It's real easy to get zip tied to the GPS sensor we installed earlier. On this car, it's a little harder to access because of this bar here. So I'm going to go ahead and just zip tie the harnesses together over the top of the intake tube. Both accomplish the same thing of getting it to the center of the car and away from the cats. And then we'll be done on this side and we can go back to the trunk. So the rearmost brown on the like foil heat wrapped harness down here, the rearmost brown Christmas trees, there's provisions for both of these on our bracket. You'll just have to slide the zip tie down the harness. And then if you broke any of these during the install, we provide new ones. So you can put new ones on there. Same with if you broke the zip tie on that trans vent reservoir right here. So I've got this slid down now, and I can get this punched into our bracket. And I'll do the same on that side too. Take your clear lid and wrap the lid seal around it. And then we found it's easiest to do the side of the box first. So we're gonna slide it hard into this side. Start this side next. And then with those two done, work our way around the bottom and the top last. So if you have any issues with the filter contacting the lid on the bottom, we just lift up on the filter a little bit. Put the bottom in first while lifting on the filter, and then do the sides and then the top. So with all that done, we can now reinstall our airbox cover, and we are done.